And I mean, I remember October 2007 arriving in this apartment from Los Angeles via Honda Civic, totally broke. And my roommate Joe and I were trying to figure out how to pay rent. And so we ended up actually inflating a few air mattresses, and we turned this apartment into an air bed and breakfast. If 13 years later you would tell me that, we'd be, on the eve of an IPO, I would have totally told you we were crazy. I remember when we started Airbnb, we felt like we were onto something. And I remember saying, one day this is going to be huge. Thousands of people are going to use Airbnb. So I thought we always thought it was going to be big. It's just, when you're 26 and, my parents are social workers, like my sense of scale, I couldn't tell the difference between 1,000 and 1,000,000 and 100 million people. So I think it gradually began to dawn on us that this would get bigger, probably around like 2011, 2012. But it was definitely a long road. Well, I feel like I'm now 39 going on 59 because I feel like the last, 8 months, we must have made a decade or two worth of decisions. Probably like a lot of people, I kind of came into 2020 thinking my life would go a certain way. And all of a sudden, March happens and I feel like I'm, the captain of a ship, and all of a sudden a torpedo hit the side of the ship. And then suddenly our business drops by 80% in 8 weeks. And it's not typical to run a business. It drops by 80% in 8 weeks and you live to tell about it. We had to basically rebuild almost the entire everything about the company from the ground up. But I think that a crisis, it kind of reveals a lot. You can learn a lot about somebody in a crisis. I think I learned a lot about myself in a crisis. I mean, I think what this crisis did is it got everybody really focused once again on the thing that makes this company so special, which are our hosts. We have 4 million hosts, and they're at the center of Airbnb, and they offer homes and experiences. And when the crisis happened, people really stopped traveling. And I didn't really know, I was expecting this business would take a long time to recover. But this past summer, something happened that surprised us. People found new ways to use Airbnb. We found people who were working from home and they were just really like stirred up in the house, and they decided, I'm going to get another home and work from an Airbnb in another house. College kids couldn't go back on campus. They didn't want to move back with mom and dad. So they ended up staying in Airbnbs together. Other people wanted to visit their family. They didn't want to live with their family. And I think what happened is, I think we often yearn something when it's taken away from us. Travel, for many, is taken away from them right now. Maybe something even deeper that's taken away is the sense of connection. The idea that we can spend time with the people that we care about and meet other people. And so in that way, I think there was a yearning for what we offer. And in that kind of sense, I think this company was new again for many people, and millions of people discovered this company. Now, what does it look like in the future? Well, I don't know for sure. I think anyone that was in the business of predicting the future about a year ago has been humbled by this past year. So I certainly can't predict the future. But what I will say is that I do think once vaccinations are here, I think, the roaring 20s came after the Spanish flu. There will be another roaring 20s. And I think that people are going to desire to travel again, maybe more than ever. And I think they're going to desire like an authentic way to travel where they can connect with people they care about. Well, we were actually, as you saw on the S1, EBITDA positive in 2018 on an adjusted EBITDA basis. I think that the way to think about it is we think this model has really good long-term inherent margins built into it. Now, the thing about Airbnb is we had to do a lot of hard work to get this company going. We had to design this system of trust. We had to build our own payment system. We had to invest in trust and safety to be able to make sure that two strangers could live together. We had to be able to localize our product in 200 countries and regions all over the world. We had to invest in building a brand that's known as a noun and a verb all over the world. So we had to build a lot of difficult things. We made a lot of investments. I do think, as you see in 2019, we are over an investment hump of sorts, and I'm feeling really good about what the nature of the profitability for this company is on an ongoing basis. Because at the end of the day, this is a primarily capital-light business. It's a community. Communities are extremely scalable, but you do have to invest in them if you want to build a truly global brand of hundreds of millions of people, and that's what we've really done. our hosts are so important to Airbnb, and I think, they really helped us build this company. And we wanted to make sure that we could create a way to continue to invest in our hosts for as long as Airbnb exists. And so we did. We took over 9 million shares of company stock, and we transferred it into an entity, which was a host endowment. And we then created a host advisory board. It's about 16 hosts that represent hosts all over the world. And they're going to advise us on how to invest that endowment in the host community. Well, we had quite a few risk factors, so one could read all those risk factors. But I think the biggest risk to our business, and I kind of learned this through the crisis, is losing focus. I studied entrepreneurs before me, some of the great entrepreneurs. When we lost 80% of our business in 8 weeks, I turned to entrepreneurs who had, also been in dark times. I looked at Steve Jobs when he came back to Apple, and that company was in a very, very dark place. And the first thing Steve Jobs did is he said, we have to get focused. He shuttered the majority of the product line. He went from a business unit structure to a functional organization. And, they focused their way out of that crisis. And I took inspiration from that. And I said, we're going to focus our way out of this crisis. And so we took a lot of our investments. We put them on hold. We said, what's the part of our business that is most special, most different? It was the thing we started, our hosts, who offer homes and experiences. We also shuttered our divisional structure, went to a functional organization. And I think that focus doesn't just save money and make a company more efficient. It actually leads to a lot of growth. And so I've learned this lesson, starting really focused, then, raising billions of dollars, pursuing lots of investments. This has been an opportunity for us to get a lot more focus, and I don't want to ever lose that focus again. So it doesn't mean we won't do new things. We're just not going to do them all at once, and we're going to be really focused. And, we are already in a relationship with hundreds of cities. We've collected and remitted over $2 billion of transient occupancy tax or hotel occupancy tax. So we already have agreements with almost every city in the world. And, and I think the pandemic and this new world, I think our relationship with cities is going to continue to evolve, because one of the things we're hearing from cities is that, their constituents, their voters certainly are turning for ways to earn income. We think hosting is a way that will be very, very valuable for them. And cities are, I think, in need of economic activity. I think we can be a solution to a problem they're now seeing. But I would want any city to know that ultimately we want to be wanted there, and we want to strengthen the communities that we serve. I think over our history, we sometimes were a little slow in our history. I think a lot of internet companies were, to acknowledge the full extent of their responsibility. But we've tried to be proactive over the last few years, and I hope our actions like instituting a party ban, not allowing people under the age of 25 to book Airbnb in their own city last minute, things like that. I hope cities are seeing that we're trying to do the right thing. We're trying to be proactive, and we want them to know that we want them to reach out to us when they have concerns. We want to be good actors. I'm very concerned. Right now, I think one of the major, we talk a lot about big problems in the world. Like if you went to Davos a year ago, the big topic would have been global warming. There's another big problem happening in the world. I think it's a problem of human disconnection. And I think we're feeling it right now, whether people are feeling very lonely and isolated. And I think this is causing a huge amount of mental health crisis problems, or others that are divided and distrustful. And distrust can brew kind of hate and other things as well. And I am very, very concerned. I feel like, how is it possible that we're more digitally connected than we've ever been? And yet it sometimes seems that we're growing more isolated and more disconnected. So, we're here. We're not going to solve that problem. But if we can make a very small dent on that problem, by helping, in a peak night last year, 2 million people from cultures and countries that never lived together come together, by walking in someone else's shoes. The best thing I know to bridge cultures is to have one person walk in another person's shoes. And when they do that, I think they're going to learn two really basic ideas. They're going to realize that we, humans, are fundamentally good, and we are 99% the same. And I think we like to spend a lot of time talking about the 1% of humanity or less that cause a lot of trouble, and we like to focus on all of our differences. But, having traveled the world and having had hundreds of millions of people live on Airbnb together, this concept would have statistically failed if people weren't good statistically and they weren't inherently mostly the same deep down. This idea would never have worked. We just had to build some basic features to shine a light and help people basically build a reputational system. But I am very concerned about where the world's going, and I hope we can help maybe make a very small dent in it. But of course, this is going to be the work of so many more people, and we're just going to try to do our small part.